The small town where Michael and Emily lived was peaceful, almost idyllic. Their home, a modest yet cozy house on Maple Street, was filled with the sounds of their daughter's laughter and the warmth of family life. From the outside, they appeared to be the picture of happiness. Michael sat in his car, staring at the glow of the porch light through the windshield. It was late, and he had stayed at work longer than usual, avoiding the monotony that awaited him at home. With a deep sigh, he stepped out and trudged up the steps, pushing the front door open. "You're home," Emily called from the kitchen, her voice cheerful but tinged with the weariness of a long day. "I kept dinner warm for you." Michael forced a smile as he hung his coat. "Thanks, Em." He walked into the kitchen, greeted by the familiar aroma of roast chicken and mashed potatoes. Emily stood at the stove, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing an old, stained apron. Her face lit up when she saw him, but Michael barely noticed. He sat at the table, glancing around the cluttered room. "Daddy!" Their youngest daughter, Lily, ran up to him, wrapping her tiny arms around his leg. Her older sister, Grace, followed suit, giggling. Michael patted their heads absent-mindedly, his thoughts elsewhere. Emily brought a plate of food to the table, sitting across from him. "How was your day?" "Long," Michael replied curtly, picking at his food. He looked at Emily, her tired eyes and the lines that had started to form on her face. The vibrant woman he had married seemed a distant memory, replaced by someone who constantly fretted over the children and the house. Emily watched him with concern. "You seem distant lately. Is everything okay?" Michael shrugged, not wanting to delve into his growing dissatisfaction. "Just tired, that's all." As he ate, his mind wandered. He couldn't shake the feeling of being trapped in a life that had lost its excitement. Emily, once so full of life, now seemed entirely consumed by motherhood. She rarely dressed up or took time for herself, and it grated on him. He missed the days when they were carefree and spontaneous. After dinner, Emily began clearing the table while Michael retreated to the living room, sinking into the worn-out couch. The girls played nearby, their laughter echoing through the room. He glanced at Emily as she bustled about, her every movement a reminder of the drudgery of domestic life. "Michael," she called, breaking his reverie, "can you help me get the girls ready for bed?" He suppressed a sigh, rising to his feet. "Sure." They worked together, the bedtime routine familiar and repetitive. Bath, pajamas, stories, and finally tucking the girls into their beds. Emily kissed their foreheads, her love for them evident in every gesture. Michael watched, feeling a pang of guilt for his restless thoughts. Once the girls were asleep, Emily joined Michael on the couch. She leaned against him, seeking comfort. "I know things have been hard lately, but we can get through this. We're a team, right?" Michael nodded mechanically, not trusting himself to speak. He looked at her, seeing the exhaustion etched into her features. The woman he had once adored now felt like a stranger, someone whose presence only heightened his sense of entrapment. As Emily drifted off to sleep beside him, Michael stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. He longed for excitement, for the freedom he had once taken for granted. He resented Emily for what she had become, for the way her life revolved around their children, leaving little room for anything else. He thought about the past, the days when Emily had been lively and full of energy. Michael's thoughts grew darker. He imagined a life without her, where he could start over, find someone who made him feel alive again. He knew it was unfair, that Emily had given everything for their family. He wished for a way out, a chance to reclaim the excitement and passion that had faded over the years. Michael's discontent festered. a silent rift growing between him and the woman he had once loved. Michael's workplace bustled with activity, the constant hum of machinery and chatter of workers filling the air. It was here, in the midst of concrete and steel, that he first met Amanda. Amanda was a new hire, fresh out of college and full of youthful energy. Her presence was a breath of fresh air in the otherwise monotonous environment. She moved with a confidence that caught Michael's eye, and before long, he found himself drawn to her. "Hey, Michael," Amanda called out one afternoon, her voice carrying over the noise. "Can you help me with this blueprint? I can't seem to figure out this section." Michael approached, glancing at the blueprint she held out. As he leaned over to inspect it, he couldn't help but notice the faint scent of her perfume, a tantalizing blend that made his heart race. He forced himself to focus on the task at hand, explaining the details of the blueprint. Amanda listened intently, her eyes never leaving his face. There was something in her gaze, a spark of interest that went beyond professional curiosity. Michael felt a thrill run through him, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. "Thanks, Michael. You're a lifesaver," Amanda said, flashing him a bright smile. "How about we grab lunch together? My treat." Michael hesitated, but the prospect of spending more time with Amanda was too tempting to resist. "Sure, why not?" They found a quiet corner in a nearby cafe, away from the prying eyes of their colleagues. Conversation flowed easily between them, and Michael found himself laughing and sharing stories he hadn't thought about in years. Amanda's laughter was infectious, and her enthusiasm was a stark contrast to the dullness that had crept into his life at home. As the lunch hour drew to a close, Amanda leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know, Michael, you're not like the others here. There's something different about you." Michael felt a blush creep up his neck. "I don't know about that. I'm just an ordinary guy." "Maybe," Amanda replied, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "But I think there's more to you than meets the eye." The days that followed were a blur of stolen glances and lingering touches. Amanda's interest in Michael was unmistakable, and despite his initial reluctance, he found himself increasingly captivated by her. She was everything Emily was not, vibrant, carefree, and utterly intoxicating. One evening, as they worked late in the office, just two of them, Amanda made her move. She leaned over Michael's desk, her blouse unbuttoned, just enough to reveal a hint of cleavage. Michael swallowed hard, his pulse quickening. "Amanda, he began, but she cut him off. "Shh," she whispered, placing a finger on his lips. "You've been working so hard, Michael. You deserve a break." Michael knew he should resist, but Amanda's proximity and the heat of her body were too much to ignore. She leaned in closer, her lips brushing against his ear. "Let me take care of you," she murmured. Michael's resolve crumbled. He reached out, his hand trembling as he touched her face. Amanda responded instantly, closing the distance between them. Their kiss was electric, a jolt of desire that obliterated all rational thought. "Come with me," Amanda breathed, pulling him towards the stairwell. They moved in a daze, their hands exploring each other's bodies as they stumbled down the stairs. The door to the stairwell clicked shut behind them, and in the dim light, they gave in to their passion. As Michael lost himself in the heat of the moment, a fleeting thought of Emily and the girls waiting at home crossed his mind. He pushed it away, focusing instead on the sensations coursing through him. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive. Afterwards, as they lay tangled together, Michael felt a pang of guilt. But Amanda's touch was soothing, her presence a balm to his weary soul. "You needed this," she whispered. "We both did." Michael nodded, though he knew the consequences of his actions would haunt him. The following days saw him returning home later and later, often not at all. When he did come home, Emily's worried questions were met with irritation and anger. "Where have you been?" Emily asked one night, her voice trembling. "The girls were asking for you." "Working," Michael snapped. "Do you think money grows on trees? Someone has to pay the bills." Emily flinched at his harsh tone. "I know, but can't you at least call? Let us know you're okay." Michael rolled his eyes. "I'm fine, Emily. Stop nagging me." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. She turned away, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Michael felt a stab of guilt, but quickly pushed it aside. Michael found himself comparing Emily to Amanda at every turn. Emily's once vibrant beauty had faded with the years, her body softened by childbirth and the strain of raising their daughters. Amanda, on the other hand, was a vision of youth and vitality. Her skin was smooth and unmarked, her figure slim and enticing. Michael couldn't help but be captivated by her, finding her irresistible in every way. Emily's attempts to care for him felt more like a burden than a comfort. He resented her constant need for reassurance, her nagging questions about his whereabouts. Amanda, in contrast, made him feel desired and important. She never demanded anything from him, only offered pleasure and escape. One night, as Emily tried to explain the challenges of managing the household, Michael cut her off sharply. "It's not that hard, Emily. You stay home all day. The least you can do is keep the place tidy." Emily's face fell, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm trying, Michael. The girls are a handful, and I barely have time for myself." "That's no excuse," he snapped. "Maybe if you took better care of yourself, things would be easier." Emily's shoulders slumped and she turned away, defeated. Michael felt a surge of satisfaction. He knew he was being unfair, but he couldn't stop the words from spilling out. As the weeks went by, Michael's visits to Amanda became more frequent. He stayed out late, often not returning home until the early hours of the morning. When Emily confronted him, he lashed out, accusing her of being too demanding and controlling. "Why can't you just trust me?" he shouted one night. "I'm working hard to provide for this family, and all you do is complain." "I'm not complaining," Emily said softly. "I'm just worried about you, about us." "There's nothing to worry about," he retorted. "Maybe if you focused more on yourself and less on me, you'd be happier." Emily's silence was deafening. She had no words left, no way to bridge the growing chasm between them. Michael's mind was consumed by thoughts of Amanda, and he had little patience for anything else. Amanda was everything he had ever wanted. But as he lay in bed with Amanda one night, a nagging doubt crept into his mind. He thought of Emily and the girls, of the life he had built and was now destroying. "What's wrong?" Amanda asked, sensing his unease. "Nothing," Michael lied. "Just tired." Amanda frowned but didn't press the issue. She snuggled closer, her warmth a temporary comfort. As the weeks passed, Michael's double life became increasingly difficult to maintain. He was constantly on edge, fearing that his secret would be discovered. The strain took its toll, and he found himself growing more irritable and short-tempered. One evening, as he walked through the door, Emily met him with a look of desperation. "Michael, please, we need to talk." "Not now," he said, brushing past her. "Yes, now," she insisted, grabbing his arm. "This can't go on. I can't do this alone." Michael pulled away, his anger flaring. "You're not alone. I'm here, aren't I?" Emily's eyes blazed with frustration. "Physically, maybe. But you're not really here, Michael. You're always somewhere else, with someone else." The accusation hung in the air, and Michael felt a surge of panic. "What are you talking about? You think I don't know?" Emily's voice was trembling. I can see it in your eyes, the way you look at me. You're disgusted, and I don't know why." Michael's heart pounded in his chest. "Emily, Just tell me the truth," she pleaded. "If you don't love me anymore, if you want to leave, just say it." The words stuck in his throat, and for a moment he considered telling her everything. But the thought of losing Amanda, of facing the reality of his actions, was too much to bear. "I don't know what you want me to say," he muttered, turning away. Emily's sobs echoed through the house. Amanda's demands on Michael increased steadily. What started as innocent lunches and late-night work sessions soon turned into constant messages and calls. She wanted more of his time, more of his attention. Michael found it increasingly difficult to juggle his double life. "Can you come over tonight?" Amanda texted as Michael sat in the living room with his daughters, Grace and Lily. The girls were engrossed in their cartoons, oblivious to their father's inner turmoil. Michael glanced at Emily, who was busy folding laundry. He sighed and typed back, "I can't. I'm with the family." The response came swiftly. "I miss you. I need you. Please, Michael." Michael's grip tightened on his phone. He felt torn, the guilt gnawing at him, but the pull of Amanda's desire was too strong. "I'll try," he replied. Later that evening, as Emily tucked the girls into bed, Michael slipped out, muttering an excuse about urgent work. Emily's weary eyes followed him, but she said nothing. She had grown used to his late-night absences, though the pain it caused her was evident. At Amanda's apartment, she greeted him with a sultry smile. "I knew you'd come." Michael felt a rush of guilt mixed with excitement. He reached out to her, their bodies tangling as they kissed. Amanda pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes. "Move to the city with me, Michael. Let's start fresh." Michael's heart pounded. "I can't just leave my family, Amanda." Amanda's expression shifted, a hint of annoyance creeping in. "You don't love her. You deserve to be with someone who makes you happy." "I can't abandon them," Michael insisted, though his resolve wavered. Amanda pressed her body against his, her hands roaming over his chest. "You deserve better, Michael. You deserve me." Michael's breath hitched. The temptation was overwhelming, but he pushed back. "This is wrong, Amanda. I have responsibilities." Amanda pouted, her tone turning sultry. "If you don't come with me, I'll find someone who will. Your boss, Mr. Thompson, seems very interested in me. He's always touching me, making comments. I'm sure he'd love to be with me." Jealousy flared within Michael. The thought of another man, especially Thompson, with Amanda, was unbearable. "Amanda, please, decide, Michael," she whispered. "Me or her." Michael returned home late that night, his mind in turmoil. Emily was asleep on the couch, a book lying open on her chest. He watched her for a moment, the familiar pang of guilt twisting in his gut. She looked so peaceful, so worn out from the day's tasks. His daughters slept soundly in their room, unaware of the storm brewing in their father's heart. Michael knelt beside Emily, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. He saw the lines of worry etched into her skin, the toll of years spent caring for their family. The comparison to Amanda was stark in his mind. Amanda, with her youthful energy and carefree spirit, was everything Emily was not. The next morning, Michael woke early, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He knew what he had to do, but the thought of it made him sick. He found Emily in the kitchen, making breakfast for the girls. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, his voice strained. She looked up, worry flashing in her eyes. "What is it, Michael?" I need space," he stammered. "I need to figure some things out." Emily's face paled. "What do you mean? Are you leaving?" Michael nodded, unable to meet her gaze. I think it's best if I go for a while. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Michael, please. We can work this out. Whatever it is, we can fix it. Michael shook his head, his heart breaking at the sight of her pain. I'm sorry, Emily, I need to go. The girls entered the kitchen, sensing the tension. Daddy, what's wrong? Grace asked, her big eyes filled with confusion. Michael forced a smile. Daddy just needs to go away for a bit, sweetheart. I'll be back soon. As he packed his bags, the reality of his decision hit him. He was leaving his family for a chance at happiness with Amanda, but the cost was unimaginable. He looked around the house, the memories flooding back, birthdays, holidays, quiet evenings together. He was throwing it all away. When he arrived at Amanda's apartment, she opened the door with a triumphant smile. You made the right choice, Michael. Michael nodded, trying to push the guilt away. Yeah, I hope so. Amanda wrapped her arms around him, kissing him deeply. You won't regret it. We'll be so happy together. Michael initially reveled in the thrill of his new life with Amanda. The city buzzed with energy, and their apartment, though small, offered a fresh start. Let's order in tonight, Amanda suggested, sprawled on the couch with a fashion magazine. Michael frowned slightly. Again? We can't keep eating takeout every night. Amanda waved her hand dismissively. I don't cook, Michael. You know that. He sighed, missing Emily's home-cooked meals. The thought of Emily stirred a mix of emotions: guilt, longing, and irritation. Amanda's carefree attitude was alluring at first, but it soon began to wear on him. Days turned into weeks, and the initial thrill started to fade. Michael noticed how Amanda left clothes strewn about the apartment, dishes piled high in the sink, and empty takeout containers scattered on the counter. Emily, with her meticulous nature, had always kept their home spotless. The contrast was jarring. Can you at least try to clean up a bit? Michael asked one evening, picking up a pair of Amanda's shoes from the middle of the living room. Amanda glanced up from her phone, her expression indifferent. What's the big deal? It's just us here. It's a mess, Amanda. I can't live like this, he said, frustration creeping into his voice. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. Just relax, will you? Michael bit back a retort and went to the kitchen to make himself a sandwich. He opened the fridge to find it nearly empty. The realization hit him hard. He missed the simple comforts of his old life. He missed the way Emily took care of their home, the meals she prepared, and even the routines they had shared. One night, Amanda decided to go out with friends. I'll be back late, she said, slipping into a revealing dress. Michael looked at her, feeling a pang of unease. Do you have to go out so often? Amanda shrugged. It's just for fun. Don't wait up. Michael stayed up late, but eventually exhaustion took over, and he fell asleep. The next morning he awoke to an unexpected sight. A half-naked man sprawled on the living room couch. Panic surged through him as he sat up, his mind racing. Just then, Amanda emerged from the bathroom, a towel wrapped around her body. She looked at Michael, her expression nonchalant. Oh, you're up. Michael's voice was tight with anger and confusion. Who is this? Amanda glanced at the man on the couch and shrugged. Just a friend. We had a wild party last night and got a bit carried away. We were both too drunk to make it home. Michael's anger flared. What the hell, Amanda? You let a stranger sleep here? Relax, Michael, she said, rolling her eyes. It's not a big deal. We didn't do anything. Michael felt his blood boil. Not a big deal? There's a half-naked man on our couch." The man stirred, sitting up and rubbing his eyes. He looked at Michael, then at Amanda, and smiled. "Morning." Amanda walked over and kissed the man's forehead. "Thanks for last night. You were great." Michael's vision blurred with rage. "Get out," he growled at the man. The man stood up, dressed quickly, and as he headed for the door, he turned to Amanda. "You were amazing, Amanda. Call me any time." The door closed behind him, leaving a stunned silence in the apartment. Michael turned to Amanda, his fists clenched. "This is too much, Amanda. I can't live like this." Amanda smirked, unfazed. "Oh, come on, Michael. Don't be such a prude. We had fun, that's all." Michael's frustration boiled over. "You're impossible. This is not what I signed up for." Amanda crossed her arms, her expression defiant. "Then maybe you should leave. I'm not changing for anyone." Michael felt a wave of regret crash over him. The fantasy he had chased was crumbling, and reality was setting in. The allure of his affair with Amanda had faded, leaving him with the harsh truth of her reckless behavior. That night, as Amanda slept beside him, Michael stared at the ceiling, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. In the days following Michael's departure, Emily sat at the kitchen table, staring at the nearly empty jar of peanut butter. The silence of the house was deafening, broken only by the occasional giggle from Grace and Lily playing in the living room. Michael was gone, and with him, their savings. She had tried to keep a brave face for the girls, but the weight of their situation was beginning to crush her. The knock on the door startled her. She quickly wiped her eyes and went to answer it. Standing there was Teresa, her elderly neighbor and friend. "Emily, dear, I brought you some groceries," Teresa said, holding up a couple of bags. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Teresa, you didn't have to." "I know, but I wanted to," Teresa replied, stepping inside and placing the bags on the counter. "How are you holding up?" Emily sank into a chair, unable to hold back the tears any longer. "Not well, Teresa. Michael, he took everything. I don't know how I'm going to manage." Teresa sat down beside her, taking her hand. "You're stronger than you think, Emily. You'll get through this." Emily wiped her eyes. "I had to sell my mother's wedding bracelet. It was the last thing I had of hers. I never thought it would come to this." Teresa's eyes softened with sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Emily." Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself. "I need to find a job. Anything to keep us afloat." Teresa nodded. "I know a place that's hiring. It's not much, but it's a start. We can go there tomorrow." The next day, Emily and Teresa visited a local diner. The owner, a kind man named Joe, agreed to hire Emily as a waitress. It was hard work, but it was a lifeline. That evening, exhausted from her first day on the job, Emily sat on the couch, watching her daughters play. The memories of Michael's betrayal resurfaced, and she couldn't hold it in any longer. As the days turned into weeks, Emily's routine became a blur of work and caring for her daughters. The pain of Michael's absence was a constant ache, but she forced herself to focus on the present. Teresa's visits became a source of comfort and strength. One evening, after putting the girls to bed, Emily and Teresa sat in the kitchen, sipping tea. "Teresa, I have to confess something," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I knew about Michael's affair." Teresa looked at her, eyes wide with surprise. "You did?" Emily nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I saw the lipstick on his collar, smelled the perfume, and sometimes there were marks on his neck. I kept hoping it was just a phase, that he would come back to us." Teresa reached out, placing a comforting hand on Emily's arm. "Why didn't you say anything?" Emily's voice broke. "For the girls. I wanted them to have a father. I thought if I pretended everything was okay, he might come back to us." Teresa sighed deeply. "Emily, you're a remarkable woman. You've endured so much. But you can't keep sacrificing yourself for someone who doesn't appreciate you." Emily nodded, wiping her tears. "I know. I just wanted to believe in the good." The next few months were a testament to Emily's resilience. She worked tirelessly at the diner, and with Teresa's help, she managed to make ends meet. The girls adjusted to their new reality, and slowly their laughter began to return. In Another City, Michael sat on the couch in Amanda's apartment, the television flickering with some late-night show he wasn't really watching. His thoughts were far away, lost in the noise of his own regrets. Amanda had been out all evening, and he found himself dreading her return. The door swung open, and Amanda walked in without a word. She didn't look at Michael, didn't acknowledge his presence. Instead, she headed straight for the bedroom and began pulling clothes from the closet. Michael jumped up, panic rising in his chest. "Amanda, what are you doing?" She didn't answer, continuing to shove clothes into a suitcase with swift, angry movements. "Talk to me," Michael pleaded, following her into the bedroom. "What's going on?" Amanda finally turned to face him, her expression cold and detached. "I'm leaving, Michael. This isn't working." He felt his heart sink. "What do you mean? We've had our rough patches, but we can work through this." Amanda shook her head, a bitter smile curling her lips. "No, we can't. I'm bored, Michael. This life with you. It's not what I want." "How can you say that?" Michael's voice wavered. "I left everything for you." Amanda rolled her eyes, continuing to pack. "And that was a mistake. I never really loved you, Michael. I was just having fun." Michael felt a cold dread settle in his chest. "What are you talking about?" Amanda paused, looking at him with a mixture of pity and contempt. "I had a bet with my friend. She bet I couldn't make you leave your wife and kids. I wanted to prove her wrong. And guess what? I won." The room spun around Michael. "A bet? You ruined my life for a bet." "Don't be so dramatic," Amanda scoffed. "I didn't ruin anything. You made your own choices. I just gave you a little push." Michael's shoulders slumped, the weight of his actions pressing down on him. "What am I supposed to do now?" Amanda shrugged. "That's not my problem. I'm moving on. I need someone who can keep up with me, not someone who's stuck in the past." "Please, Amanda," Michael pleaded. We can fix this. I'll do better." But Amanda was already zipping up her suitcase. "No, Michael. This is over. You need to figure out your own mess." Michael watched in stunned silence as she walked to the door. He followed her, desperation clawing at him. "Amanda, please, don't do this." Amanda turned one last time, a cruel glint in her eyes. "You know, it's kind of pathetic. You left a woman who stood by you for years, and now you're left with nothing. Good luck with that." With that, she was gone. Michael stood at the window, watching as she made her way to a sleek, black car parked at the curb. She opened the door and leaned in, kissing the driver, a well-dressed man who wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Michael's world shattered. He watched as the car drove away. The silence in the apartment was deafening, a stark reminder of his isolation. In the days that followed, Michael tried reaching out to his old friends, but they were distant, polite, but uninterested. But Amanda was already zipping up her suitcase. "No, Michael, this is over. You need to figure out your own mess." Michael watched in stunned silence as she walked to the door. He followed her, desperation clawing at him. "Amanda, please, don't do this." Amanda turned one last time, a cruel glint in her eyes. You know, it's kind of pathetic. You left a woman who stood by you for years, and now you're left with nothing. Good luck with that." With that, she was gone. Michael stood at the window, watching as she made her way to a sleek black car parked at the curb. She opened the door and leaned in, kissing the driver, a well-dressed man who wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Michael's world shattered. He watched as the car drove away. The silence in the apartment was deafening, a stark reminder of his isolation. In the days that followed, Michael tried reaching out to his old friends, but they were distant, polite, but uninterested. 3 months had passed since Michael last heard Emily's voice over the phone. The time had not been kind to him. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow, and a scraggly beard covered his chin. He barely recognized himself in the mirror, but he knew he had to face his past. With trembling hands, he knocked on the door of Emily's new home. The house was modest but well kept, with a small garden blooming out front. He felt a pang of longing and regret as he waited. The door opened, and Emily stood there, her eyes widening in shock. "Michael," she whispered, hardly believing the disheveled man before her was her former husband. Michael's voice cracked as he spoke. "Emily, I need to talk to you." Emily hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. The warmth of the house enveloped him, a stark contrast to the cold emptiness he had lived in. Grace and Lily were playing in the living room, their laughter a bittersweet melody to his ears. "Daddy!" Lily shouted, running up to him and throwing her arms around his legs. Grace followed, her eyes shining with excitement. "We missed you, Daddy." Michael knelt down, embracing his daughters tightly. Tears streamed down his face as he realized the magnitude of what he had lost. "I missed you too, so much." As they walked into the kitchen, Emily poured them both a cup of tea, her movements precise and controlled. Michael sat at the table, feeling like an intruder in what was once his own life. "Where's Amanda?" Emily asked, her tone steady but curious. Michael's silence spoke volumes. He stared at the steaming cup in front of him, unable to meet her gaze. Emily sighed, understanding dawning on her face. "She's gone, isn't she?" Michael nodded, his eyes filling with tears. "I was such a fool, Emily. I left you and the girls for nothing. I thought I could find happiness, but all I found was emptiness." Emily's face remained impassive, though her eyes softened slightly. "What do you want, Michael?" "I want to make things right," he pleaded, his voice breaking. "I know I don't deserve it, but please, let me try." Before Emily could respond, a man walked out of the kitchen carrying a tray of cookies. He looked at Michael with curiosity. "Who's this?" he asked, looking at Emily. Emily stood up, her back straight. "David, this is Michael, the girl's father." David's expression softened, and he extended a hand. "Nice to meet you, Michael." Michael shook his hand, feeling a mix of gratitude and jealousy. David was everything he used to be and more. David set the tray of cookies on the table, then walked over to Emily, kissing her on the forehead. "I'll take the girls to the backyard so you two can talk," he said gently. He led Grace and Lily outside, their laughter echoing through the house. Michael watched them go, a lump forming in his throat. He turned to Emily. "Who's David?" Emily looked at him, her expression calm. "He's my boyfriend. He's been helping us a lot. I'm very grateful for him." Michael's heart ached, but he knew he had no right to complain. "I'm glad you have someone like him," he said softly. Emily nodded. "What do you want, Michael?" "I want to be a part of their lives again," he said, his voice trembling. "I know I can't be the husband you need, but I want to be a good father. Please, Emily, give me a chance." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted it to come to this, Michael. We loved each other so much. But things changed." Michael nodded, wiping his eyes. "I know. I'm so sorry for everything I've done. Please let me see the girls. I promise I'll do better." Emily looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, you can visit them. But you need to prove that you've changed, that you're here for the right reasons." "I will," Michael promised, his voice filled with determination. "I won't let you down again." As Michael prepared to leave, the girls came running in from the backyard, their faces bright with joy. "Daddy, are you staying?" Grace asked, her eyes wide with hope. Michael knelt down, hugging them tightly. "No, sweetheart, I don't live here anymore. But I promise I'll come visit you often." Lily looked up at him, her brow furrowed. "Why can't you stay, Daddy?" Michael's heart broke at her innocent question. "Because I made some mistakes, Lily. But I'm going to make things right. I promise." He kissed their foreheads and stood up, feeling a mixture of sadness and hope. As he walked to the door, Emily followed him. "Thank you, Emily," he said, his voice sincere, "for giving me another chance." Emily nodded, her eyes filled with emotion. "Don't thank me yet, Michael. Show me you've changed." Michael stepped outside, the cool air hitting his face. He looked back at the house, watching as David played with Grace and Lily in the backyard. It hurt to see another man in his place. He took a deep breath and headed towards his mother's home, where he had been staying since leaving the city. The next morning, Michael woke up early and decided to take a walk around town. He passed by familiar places, now filled with memories and regrets. He knew he had to start somewhere, to rebuild his life and regain the trust of those he had hurt. As he walked into the local community center, he saw a notice board filled with volunteer opportunities. Michael's eyes landed on a flyer for a community cleanup event. He signed up, feeling a sense of purpose for the first time in months. The cleanup event was scheduled for the weekend. Michael arrived early, eager to contribute. He was surprised to see David there, organizing the volunteers. Their eyes met, and Michael approached him, extending his hand. "David," Michael began, his voice steady, "I just wanted to thank you for everything you've done for Emily and the girls." David shook his hand firmly, nodding. "They're a wonderful family. I'm happy to help." They worked side by side, clearing debris and tidying up the park. Michael found himself admiring David's dedication and kindness. Despite the circumstances, they began to develop a mutual respect for each other. During a break, they sat on a bench, sharing a moment of silence. Michael turned to David. "I know I've made a lot of mistakes, but I'm trying to change. For Emily, for the girls, and for myself." David looked at him thoughtfully. "I can see that. It won't be easy, but if you keep at it, people will notice. The important thing is to stay true to your word." Michael nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. "Thanks, David. That means a lot." Over the next few weeks, Michael continued to volunteer, slowly integrating himself back into the community. He helped at the food bank, repaired playgrounds, and even assisted elderly neighbors with household chores. Each act of service brought him a step closer to redemption. One day, while helping a struggling family with their yard work, Michael struck up a conversation with the father, John. John was out of work and struggling to make ends meet. Michael listened to his story, feeling a deep empathy for his situation. "I've been there," Michael said quietly. "I lost everything because of my mistakes, but I've found that helping others can be the first step to getting back on your feet." John looked at him, eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Michael. You've given me hope." As Michael walked home that evening, he reflected on his journey. He realized that his path to redemption wasn't just about making amends with Emily and the girls. It was about becoming a better person, someone who contributed positively to the world. Back at his mother's home, Michael sat down and wrote a letter to Emily. He poured his heart into it, expressing his regrets, his commitment to change, and his gratitude for her willingness to let him be part of the girls' lives. He didn't ask for forgiveness outright, knowing it had to be earned, but he wanted her to know he was trying. Weeks turned into months, and Michael's efforts began to pay off. People in the community started to see him differently, not just as the man who had left his family, but as someone who was genuinely working to improve. The whispers and judgmental glances lessened, replaced by nods of acknowledgement and small smiles. One sunny afternoon, as Michael was finishing up a project at the community center, he saw Emily and the girls walking towards him. David was with them, carrying a picnic basket. Grace and Lily ran ahead, their faces lighting up when they saw Michael. "Daddy!" they shouted in unison, hugging him tightly. Michael hugged them back, his heart swelling with love and gratitude. Emily and David approached, and Michael stood up, feeling a mix of emotions. "Hi, Michael," Emily said softly. "We thought we'd bring lunch and see if you'd like to join us." Michael nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I'd love that." They spread out a blanket in the park, the girls chattering happily as they ate. Michael watched them, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in a long time. Emily caught his eye and smiled, a gesture of understanding and shared history. After lunch, David suggested a game of catch with the girls, giving Michael and Emily a moment alone. They walked together, the familiar sounds of their children's laughter filling the air. "You're doing well, Michael," Emily said. "I can see the changes in you. The girls are happier when you're around." Michael's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Emily, for giving me this chance. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm committed to being there for them." Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting her inner strength. "We're taking it one step at a time. That's all we can do." As the sun began to set, they gathered their things. Michael watched as David played with the girls, feeling a pang of jealousy but also gratitude for the stability he provided. As they parted ways, Grace and Lily hugged Michael tightly. "Will you come again, Daddy?" Grace asked, her eyes hopeful. "Yes, sweetheart," Michael promised. "I'll be here as often as I can." Emily and David watched as Michael walked away, the girls waving until he was out of sight. Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to continue on this path of redemption. As he reached his mother's home, Michael looked back at the town he once felt so distant from. It was now a place of hope and new beginnings. He knew his journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of peace and the strength to keep moving forward. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through Michael's emotional journey. His story of redemption and second chances is a powerful reminder to appreciate what we have before it's gone. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to rebuild a relationship or found a new appreciation for something in your life? Share your stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for being part of this journey with me. Your support means the world. Until next time, take care and cherish every moment. See you in the comments.